Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. Today talking about the 2021 California recall election. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for the Republican Party to seize back California. Okay, and by once in a lifetime, I mean going forwards, I don't see this ever happening again in any meaningful way. Of course, can a Phil Scott, can a Larry Hogan be governor of California? Maybe, but anybody who's like even to the right of Mitt Romney, Larry Elder in this case, for them to even have a 5% chance of winning California statewide, I think this is probably the last chance we'll see in a long, 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 long time. So yes, that is going to be the video topic. So people have been asking, and I've seen people, Red Eagle, we have Real American Politics, we have a lot of people, in the election mafia, as well as election YouTubers in general, that are saying, well, Gavin Newsom will win, and it's going to be very much lopsided. And to them I say, you're damn right, actually. You're actually right. And, people will make 15-minute videos explaining all the little intricate details, and I'm not even going to bother with that because, screw that. What you need to know is black turnout is lower than normal, which is a good thing for Republicans. We are looking at higher independent share of the vote, which is good for the opposition party. We are looking at lower Democratic turnout than normal, which is ideal. We're also looking at higher Republican turnout per capita, which is awesome. And we're also looking at less Latinos voting, which is good. And we're also looking at more white people voting, which is typically correlative with Republican success, not always, but usually. Obviously exceptions being Miami and, Vermont being very liberal and very white. So again, exceptions, but they prove the rule more or less. White people vote Republican. And if you look at the state of California, white people are less than 50% of the population, allegedly, in the state of California as of this year. And that pretty much means that we are going to lose every election because without a majority state being white, you are almost like 95% of the time going to lose with a Republican candidate. That's the way the rules are, not me. I didn't make them. Okay, who cares? Anyways, so the electorate that's going to be white is anywhere from 66 to 70-ish%, which is going to be pretty good for Republicans because that's more or less in line with the national government. And if you know anything about general federal elections, they are pretty close either way. So by that logic, it should be pretty close either way in California. Now, then the exception being that the Californian Mexicans, for example, aren't as Republican as are the Cubans in Florida. So that Latino vote is a little skewed left if you want to think about it that way. And for example, the Puerto Ricans in New York are pretty liberal as well. Now, if you were to point back to the black population, that's way too small for it to make a difference. It's only 3% of the total vote so far, so that's pretty impressive. And insofar as the white vote, the white people do vote substantially to the left of the average white person in America. So if the average white person in America votes 60-ish% Republican, we're looking at the average Californian white person almost 50-50, which is absolutely pathetic, but that is the state of the white liberal in SoCal. Anyway, we are looking at lower Latino, lower Asian, I believe, lower Hispanic, as well as higher white. And that is, goes hand in hand with lower turnout elections. This is going to be lower turnout than 2020, obviously. Now, the deficit in the voting is definitely on the Democratic side. The Democrats are definitely below par on vote turnout. Now, that being said, it isn't as bad as it could be. And in fact, I'll show you how the trajectory of the race was very different, a month ago in August and late July, actually. So I need to point that out for you guys, as well as I will bring up the second point of this election happening very soon, mid-September. We are looking at a electorate that is not that favorable. And again, this is good for California, but good for California might as well just be like losing one arm, in the Paralympics. So again, not good, but not as bad as it could be. So that is what it is. Now I will go on to the other data and darts. Okay, so for example, I can show you 538. We'll start with the bullshit. Or no. We're going to start over here, actually. So we're going to start within the last 30 years of electoral history of California. As you can see here, Governor Pete Wilson beat Dianne Feinstein, who is the current senator, alongside the Mexican, I think it's former Secretary of State of California, Alex Padilla, if I'm right. So if you look over here, Pete Wilson beat her by about 3.5 in 1990. So again, this is after the Reagan amnesty, the so-called amnesty that gave California to the Democrats. As you can see here, that was not true. Now, did it help? No, but was it the nail in the coffin? Not at all. Okay, so just keep that in mind. It's a little disinfo. Demographic change has probably resulted in only 1/3 of the Republican losses, the others being differences in black turnout, for example, in Georgia, or North Carolina in 2008, or for example, the suburban trend, which has been absolutely lethal in places like Arizona, places like Georgia, places like Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. These places are suffering a lot because of suburban blue shift. New Hampshire, yet another example. Maine, not to that extent. Now we move on to Kathleen Brown versus Pete Wilson in 1994 in the Republican wave year. And Pete Wilson, despite there being 4 years of immigration, oh my God, the fucking Mexicans, no, the amnesty, no. We see here Pete Wilson wins by about 15%. So again, get shit on people. And again, he gets 1 million more votes than he did the last election. So this is really impressive. And the Democrats also gain more votes, and yet even still, or stay the same actually, the Republicans gain a lot of steam. So very good look. Now again, the electorate doesn't shift that much in 4 years. The Republicans went from winning by 15 in 1994 to losing by 20% in 1998. So in 4 years, the electorate or the vote share shifted 30-ish points. Okay, so the population of California did not change 30% in 4 years. It changed maybe 5% at most. Definitely under 10. And so you can chalk up like 80% of this electoral difference to not immigration. So again, not that big of a deal, but you can see the formulations, okay? As you can see here, all the fucking coast, besides this little piece over here, went to the Democrats, Gary Davis. Now, Gary Davis is an important figure in California politics, and you're going to understand why. In 2002, with several years of immigration, obviously, the Republicans still come vaguely close. If you look here, Gray Davis only wins by about 5%. That being said, there is a Green Party, and so basically it goes blue by a likely margin over Bill Simon. Bill Simon, who you've never heard of. So, and he's also billed as a conservative Republican in California of all places. And even when California went to Reagan, went to Nixon, they were never conservative Republicans. They were liberal Republicans in California. What strong conservative came from California in the 1960s and 70s? You have Nixon, who isn't really that conservative. You have people like Reagan, who at the time signed a marriage. But, he signed a lot of bullshit, that he didn't see coming as being so far left. But yeah, anyway, we move on to the recall election, the first one in our lifetimes, at least in my lifetime. I was less than a year old in 2003. But if you look here, we have Arnold Schwarzenegger, obviously a movie star, against Cruz Bustamante, who we know nothing about, and Tom McClinton. Yeah, how the fuck do you say his name? Tom McClintock, okay? And if you look here, the Republicans altogether got about 5.3 million votes, which is the highest vote share for Republicans ever, I believe. And again, this is 2003, so this is an incumbent year, in the Bush administration. So this, October 2003 is right after Iraq, so this isn't the best time to be running politicians for the Republicans. And even still, we have the Republicans getting 61% of the vote compared to the Democrats. So they beat the Democrats 2-3, or they get 2/3 of the vote against the Democrats. That's very impressive. They win all but the San Francisco Bay Area and some of this gay stuff up here. Anyways, big win. Again, demography very different from 18 years ago. That being said, it goes to show that the Republicans still had juice up until 2003. We move on to the governorship of Arnold Schwarzenegger for realsies in 2006, which is a wave year for the Democrats. And even still, Arnold Schwarzenegger beats Phil and and so the doctor from Robot Chicken gets only 39% of the vote, losing by about 17% to the Terminator. Again, good amount of votes. You see the trend here. The Republicans are getting almost up to 5 million votes altogether. The Democrats are under 4 million here. Not good. So as late as 2006, he wins by almost 20. Okay, so with the immigration stats of 15 years ago, there was a 20-point difference. So again, immigration is not the whole reason why California is blue. It is maybe 50% of it tops. Honestly, it's the white people. And again, white people will be angry, but it's so true. And if you look at 2010, it was a low turnout year for Democrats. And even still, it shifted all the fucking way to 13 points for Jerry Brown, who isn't that popular to begin with. And again, Meg Whitman, who was this Hewlett-Packard CEO or whatever. Hewlett-Packard, I was right. Anyways, she lost by about 13, and that's not good at all. But if you look over here, she still got over 4 million votes just with the Democrats rocketed in turnout, which is insane. So you can already see the base floor level for the Democrats being at over 5 million. And again, this hasn't not that much to do with immigration. From 2006 to 10, it was obviously, again, white people. Not to be a dick, but it is simply the case. The numbers get even worse in 2014. Of course, lower turnout lowers both candidates, but it seems like the Republicans lost about 1.2 million votes, whereas Jerry Brown lost only about 1 million. And that's pretty bad. You even see these eastern armpit parts with Nevada getting close, blue. And so Neil Kashkari, who the fuck is this guy? He looks like a thumb, loses by over 1 million votes and about 20% to Jerry Brown. I don't know who the hell ran in this election. Who is this Pajit? I don't know. We move on to 2018, and we actually have Gavin Newsom, who is partially married into the Getty family, Getty Images, stock images, of course. So this guy gets all the way up to 7.7 million votes in 2018. A huge increase in turnout, 32% apparently, which is just fucking crazy. But as you can see here, over 7 million votes against Republican candidate John Cox, who was seen as a Trump Republican. And this more or less correlates with the 2016 results. And so if you look here, John Cox lost by about 23% in a blue wave year. So this guy was trying to run against Gavin Newsom again in 2021. And the gall of this motherfucker to run again. What an idiot. Honestly, he really thinks he would have done 23% better. That is asinine. He would have somehow have made up 3 million votes out of fucking nowhere. Yeah, I doubt it. So anyways, complete abysmal failing. And so Gavin Newsom's already starting off really good. Now, if you look over here, obviously we don't know who's running against Gavin Newsom officially in terms of who's leading the pack, in terms of, the actual ballots by election day. But what we do know is who's leading in the polls, and the polls do matter to an extent. And if you look at 538, which is a very bad publication, you can see over here that Californians do want to keep Gavin Newsom by 15.8%, according to September 13th polling from the balding Jew himself, Nate Silver. And if you look here, again, the floor is about 40%. Now, this is with bad polling, of course. And if you look at the most narrow margin for 538, they have it at less than 10 points apart. Now, if you were to look over here, prior to August, before it catalyzed a lot, you could see this as being, frankly, about 11 points apart from each other. So Gavin Newsom this entire time has been in the lead according to 538, but as you can see here, and again, the reason why I show you 538 is so that I can show you all the graphs. You can see more or less that in August it got really tight and then it loosened back out by late August. Part of the reason is because money started flooding in from the Democrats when it wasn't before. And not that Kamala Harris came in, but it was more or less a consolidation of the Democrats behind Newsom that happened. Prior to that, they didn't really feel a threat. So they let their guard down, and that bit them in the ass dearly in terms of coverage. So that hurt them a lot. Now, if we move on to RCP, which is a better aggregate than is 538, of course, you'll see over here that remove is actually at 41.5 and do not remove is at 57. As you can see here, again, the same graph, the same difference is already presented. In August, it was really close. In fact, it was within 0.5%. Actually, they had recall Gavin Newsom, winning by 0.5%. But as you can see, starting in August 29th, it rocketed the fuck back out. And that's the polarization effect for the election. So had the election been held August 30th, maybe you could see Larry Elder winning, assuming they didn't do any shenanigans. But of course, we cannot let the Democrats get away with that. I will not say there won't be what in 2021. But what I will say is that it'll definitely be less than the actual election in 2020. Now, if you look here, in terms of the replacement candidates, as of right now, you can see that Larry Elder is winning by about 24. If we look at all the replacement candidates, Elder is at 32, Paf Raff, who is a Blue Dog Democrat, is at 8, Falconer at 5, former mayor of San Diego, Republican, I think his name is Kevin Cox, the guy who lost to Newsom in 2018, absolute bozo. Kevin Kiley, an assemblyman that people were supporting. I don't know why he thought he was the man to run. McGowan, I have no idea who that is. Drake, I guess his Canadian citizenship was renounced. Rick Ross, damn, he's over here. I thought it was in Florida. And then we have Bruce Jenner, obviously, not Caitlyn, who's at 1%. And that's good to see that tranny is gone. Indeed, Michael Bay has gotten the Transformer off of the fucking script because apparently he is not getting anywhere in this election, which is nice to see. Now, if you were to look at the aggregate, of course, we were losing by 15 according to RCP and about by 17 according to Nate Silver. Not good. And according to Wikipedia, again, Gavin Newsom's a very strong candidate for California, or at least John Cox is no good. That much is for sure. And if I were to show you yet another metric, and again, this is the best pollster in the country, by and large, Trafalgar, take the Trafalgar pill, of course. You can see the Joe Biden approval being at 43.5 approved, 54.3 disapprove. This was as recently as, I believe, September 9th. And so this was basically a -9 for Joe Biden. Again, this is interesting to note because ultimately he was in a position to have an approval above 50 this entire time, but of course that didn't happen because he blew it. And more or less, I see this as something that is crazy, that he's even at 43. But anyway, you can see here that Biden is at a negative, so Biden is not helping Newsom at all. And if you were to look here at the final California recall election September survey, you can see here that keeping Newsom is at 53.3%, and removing him is at 44.7% with an undecided of 2. Now, let's assume that the undecideds will break a lot for remove and recall, and for Larry Elder. That'll leave Larry Elder with about 45, and will leave Gavin with about 53% of the vote. So Gavin Newsom would win the recall by about 8% according to Trafalgar Group. That being said, we can go into the crosstabs of Trafalgar, and here we are. They have a margin of error of less than 3%. So again, it has to be pretty close here. Anywhere from 6% loss for Republicans to a 12% loss, either way, I suppose. And if you were to look over here, Larry Elder is predicted to be 41%, which is extremely ahead of the pack for the Republicans. And even if you took literally all of the undecided vote for the replacement ballot, which it probably won't even get to in the first place, and you added up to Kevin Pathrath, that would only be about 33%. So again, not even close to. Larry Elder is 100% going to be the second place candidate if it goes down to that. Now, if you were to look at the demographics of the electorate, you'll see over here that it is more old than it is young 100%, as well it is more old than normal, which definitely benefits conservatism and Republicans. So that'll probably help a net of a couple points for Larry Elder. Now, again, if you were to look over here, they have their white sample at 52. They have their Hispanic at 27. They have their Asian at 14. Black at 7. Now, I've seen different numbers, but I suppose that there's a lot of conflation between the white and the Hispanics. So, I mean, that's probably why the numbers are weird compared to what I told you like 20 minutes ago. And if you were to look over here, the recall survey so far, and again, this is the best pollster, is only 48% Democrat. In a state that voted for Newsom, 60% Democrat. Allegedly, this is under 50. So this is looking really bad for Newsom already. And again, Republicans are only 25. And the Republicans were never in a strong suit in California for the last 15 years to begin with. But if you were to look over here, no party and other independents, which will swing towards Larry Elder, are obviously going to be a demographic that the Republicans need to capitalize. But even if you add both of these together, which is impossible, they would only be 3 points ahead of the Democrats. So again, it's virtually impossible. The state is way too liberal to really have a competitive chance. And again, the chance was there a month ago when the Democrats weren't putting in any money and before the Democrats all jumped on the Newsom train. But ultimately, we see the females voting 5% more than the males. That's not a good sign. Again, that's another negative. Males typically vote more conservative and Republican, and the fact is that if you have more females in a given election, it's going to be a little bit more hard for men to make it. Now, that being said, if the electorate is whiter, and we all know that old white populations have more women than men through a convalescent, a huge set of reasons, be that World War II, Korea, whatever, you can see that might benefit the Republicans a little bit, but not by too much. So overall, we do have a confluence of factors that basically help the Republicans gain ground in California. But that being said, you cannot really get much more than a foothold. You will not win California at this rate. So, given that, what does what does Vegas say, right? What does PredictIt say? They say that Gavin Newsom has a 96% chance of winning, Larry Elder at a 6, which is kind of ridiculous, but anyway. So Gavin's at over 90% chance to win, that'll stay governor past this year. Pretty good. Now, if we look at the 90-day trade-ins, you can see that Newsom started off at 90% in July of 2021, okay, early July. You move on to the worst day for Newsom, which would be right around over here, and you see that starting August 8th, early August, you see the Newsom coin down to 70%, and you see Larry Elder's up to about 30. Now, if we move on to the last point where the Republicans were at the prime, you see Newsom down at 72, and you see the Larry Elder in the high 20s relative to the other people. So again, you see the same trend that we see in other maps where after August, it just gets wider and then he goes all the way up to 95%. So again, it looks very bad. The trend is fucking terrible right now. You see it widen and it's looking pretty rough. So as of right now, percentage-wise, I give Gavin Newsom 98% chance of staying governor, and that is also including shenanigans. I do think, and I need to be, beating around the bush, but I do think the Democrats will cook, whatever. They're going to cook the bacon, for a couple extra percentage points. That being said, it won't be determinative of the election. If anything, it'll move Gavin from a 9 to a 12 or something percentage point win. Again, Gavin Newsom being on the ballot at all in 2021 is a huge L for him, but the fact that he's going to recover by a safe amount is going to save his ass for the future. That being said, this is a pretty bad scar to have on your face. Now, you could have left the governorship with a fucking eye missing, so he couldn't run in 24, but if he does and will win tomorrow, it seems to me like he does have a good chance of winning the election somehow in 24, hypothetically in the primary. But anyway, Larry Elder, he was doing really good until the association with Trump and a lot of other things convalesced to screw him. Again, him being a black Republican with a record helped him get the primary vote, as well as being non-offensive because they couldn't really go for the racist stick on the white people. But again, black face of white supremacy. They tried, it failed, obviously. But again, issues. There's a lot of issues with his, just painting the Republicans, with the Trumpist logo. So again, you ought to avoid that at all cost. And then secondly, again, the demography isn't there for California to go Republican. So again, I will reiterate for the last time, California, 95% chance Gavin Newsom, or over 95% chance Gavin Newsom stays governor next year, as well as I think that margin-wise, I think that Gavin Newsom will win the California election by about 10%. Okay? What makes me think that? Well, if you look at the Trafalgar poll, which is extremely accurate, by the way, Gavin's is going to win the recall by about 8. Now, that being said, why don't I put it at 8%, a likely margin? Well, we all know what the Democrats do on election day. And so because of that, it's pretty safe that an 8% can go up to an 11, a 12. So I'll just meet myself in the middle and say 10. And, Red Eagle said, I think it was, I think Real American said 10. I think Red Eagle said 15, 12, something like that. So I'm going to meet them in the middle as well and say about 10 as well. And it's a shame. I really wish I didn't have to think about them cooking the results. But again, you just have to. That's life. And again, the only reason why Gavin Newsom is locked in to be governor again is because of mail-in voting. I think if the mail-in votes were not there, the Democratic turnout would be down several 100,000 votes, if not a couple million. And then Larry Elder would then have like a 50-50 shot of winning. But that being said, with the huge funding advantage, and by huge, I mean like a 10-to-1 fundraising advantage, Larry Elder was fucked from the start. And again, the media being on Newsom's side, again, covered up a lot of slack. Newsom's polling average would be down like 10% had the media been more against him. And if Larry Elder were not slandered as being a far-right person, he could do a couple points better, because I don't think that attack stuck, but still not good. And when you look at other factors, I really just do think that Gavin Newsom will win by about a safe margin of 10, and that's taking everything into account. And the odds of Larry Elder pulling an upset victory is virtually nothing. And it's unfortunate to say, but that is the case. And for the Democrats saying that Newsom will win by 20, yeah, in your fucking dreams, dude. Okay, maybe if they cook the results like triple what I'm expecting, sure, but I'm I don't see that happening. And anyways, what we will see is Newsom lose ground for 2018, which is good to see. And hopefully he gets politically wounded to the point where he doesn't run again. Or even if he does run in 24 for president, he hopefully wins the nominee, whether that be Biden or Kamala. And anyways, I believe that by virtue of wasting the Democrats' money in 21, we're going to lower their spending overall in 22. And another reason why the fundraising advantage was so lopsided for the Democrats is because Trump couldn't do rallies with Elder in such a liberal state. Obviously, that would hurt him. So in that case, he could not get the funding he could have gotten otherwise. Had this election been done in a state like South Dakota, then Trump would have easily quadrupled what Elder had in terms of fundraising, if not 10 times. And then the fundraising advantage would be more or less equalized. But that isn't the case. So Larry Elder was in a deficit in terms of demography, party registration. He was, the media was against him. He had the government agencies, whatever. Don't get into conspiracies. Anyways, double scan ballots, whatever you want to call it, that's against it, Larry. Having a whole decade or 2 decades of radio experience bites you in the ass when they get your most insensitive remarks. And again, I don't blame him, but again, that's par for the course in politics. So there's a lot of things that basically made it unwinnable for Larry. The fact that he got it that close in the polling, though, is very impressive. And so props to him, I guess. And so, yes, last time I'm going to say this. Gavin Newsom will win the California recall election in 2021 by about 10 points. Okay, recall will fail by 10. All right, that's it. Thanks.